Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our live webinar, Family Mediation and Parenting Plans, with me none other than Daniella Mair, a psychologist and someone that is very passionate about family law, resolving conflict within the family, and also trying to bring people together, families together, and let parents be the best possible co-parents as possible. Daniella, welcome, and thank you for joining us. Danielle, can you hear me? Something froze somewhere. Daniela, are you there?
I'm here. Sorry, your whole screen's frozen for me.
Yeah, yeah, perfectly fine. I think we're back on board. Daniela, welcome to the webinar. Thank you for joining us, and we're looking forward to an exciting 35-40-minute session. Awesome stuff.
Thank you very much. Always great to be here.
Wonderful. Daniela, preliminary stuff. I believe you'll be moving office soon, location. You'll be centralizing, being available in Cape Town area, Sea Point, CBD, and to a different area. Please tell us a bit of that. We're looking forward to that.
I'm very excited to have secured new offices that I'm busy renovating at the moment. So I do have my offices in Sea Point that a lot of clients come and see me at. So other than Zoom and Sea Point, I'm now going to be able to have a more centralized location in more or less the Milnerton kind of area. And I'm hoping that will make my services a bit more accessible to the wider public.
Okay. Daniela, I know I ask you this at every webinar, but people watch these videos randomly, and many times people that never watch our previous videos watch you for the first time. Tell us more about yourself in a nutshell. What services do you offer? What do you do? So before we start dealing with the issues at hand.
Just in a nutshell, almost in a nutcase, which is good for my profession. In a nutshell, I am a psychological counselor specializing in family system therapy. I'm a divorce mediator, a court-appointed parenting coordinator, and lately have dubbed myself a divorce coach and a divorce consultant, and a co-parenting coach. Because other than the actual divorce process and the mediation, I found a need for people to firstly, before they start the process, understand what their options are. So that's where the coaching comes in, the consulting. And after everything is signed and sealed and everyone started moving on, there's always a lot of issues that arise in co-parenting situations. So I also now offer a service to kind of help the entire new family system on the best way forward together.
And Daniela, that's very exciting, because people have issues, people have problems, and they struggle to resolve it within themselves, together. And if there is someone like yourself offering this type of service, obviously the people will benefit, and people do not know about the service because it isn't necessarily being advertised out there. People aren't informed about it. So Daniela, thank you for that, and we're looking forward to seeing more of that and hearing more of that in the future. Wonderful. So Daniela, let's get to the topic today. What topic are we discussing? I have discussed it with you early on. We said we'll be touching on the issue regarding children, how family conflict, how mediation, how these type of issues affect the minor kids, and also possibly what is the involvement when it comes to family mediation and parenting plans. So Daniela, please assist us regarding that.
Okay, so firstly, I just want to comment that although the parents are the ones that are actually dealing with the situation and the divorce, and they're obviously the adults that understand everything, there is absolutely no chance that we can disregard the children and their experience in the process. So it is very important to always keep primary focus on what the children might be experiencing. So there's a few things that I just want to cover in this respect. And the first one is really to always go back to the children's law, which states that in the Children's Act, it states that children are of paramount importance. Their well-being is the most important thing. And everything that we do is all with that in mind. So it doesn't matter what the circumstances are, because everybody's circumstances are different. There is no generalizing at all. We have to look at each case uniquely and see what is the best situation for that child. And then we develop everything around that. But the reason I wanted to talk about this a little bit is that because I often have clients who are in relationship therapy or marriage therapy, and you can clearly see the tension. Neither of them are happy, and they always want to stay together for the children. That is, my message today is that is like quite literally the worst possible thing that you can do. Because when we try and remember that the children are as involved in the process as the adults are, they live in the same house, they are exposed 100% of the time to the conflict in the relationship. This is only adding to the toxicity of the child or children's living environment. Obviously, when we're dealing with children and minors, we're also dealing with various phases of their development and where they are the most impressionable, or where we're shaping their character and their ethics and everything. We're trying to grow our job as parents is to grow this little human being into a functioning and valuable member of society at large. So when we are exposing them constantly to conflict, argument, swearing, throwing, sometimes even domestic violence, you really have to think about how is this actually what's best for the child, and how is staying in the relationship just to offer a child a mom and a dad permanently, how is that really what's best? And very often we find that once people get past that and do actually separate, and then whatever the situation is, eventually they find a happy medium and can carry on. And over time, things get easier. But then you've got a child who's literally living with the best version of mom and the best version of dad separate, as opposed to the worst version of both of them all the time. And one of the things that I like to say is, like, if we actually break it down and look at it, divorce is something that we deal with on a daily basis in society today. It has become a complete norm. In the past, yes, it was maybe a little bit taboo, or a little bit frowned upon, or whatever the situation, and not a lot of people knew how to navigate it. But now, with the divorce rate increasing dramatically, what it really does is it also sends a message to our children for their own lives that whatever situation they may be in, there is a way out. And this is a powerful message for me, because we're not saying that you need to now be, you need to make rash decisions because you don't ever have to face the consequences. But what it's saying is that even if you make a bad decision, or things don't turn out the way that you hoped that they would, I'm showing you by example that there are things that we can do about it to change our situation. And that is extremely a powerful tool to arm children with. So when we take all of that into account, and we remember that the child is as involved, we also now move towards another section of the Children's Act that states that children who are emotionally mature enough to handle the situation and to handle the input are 100% invited into the whole process to kind of see what their perception and their perspectives and everything are. Sometimes we're dealing with a slightly older child, sometimes we're dealing with a younger child who is mature beyond his or her years, who can give meaningful insight into the situation. So it's not always only about what mom thinks versus what dad thinks, because often that's loaded with personal conflict. So when we invite a child in and we say, you know what, the child does not have the ultimate power in the decision, because they are still children and have to live by the rules of what the parents set. But we do value you as a cog in the system. And we do want to hear what you have to say. And we do want to make life easy for you. So can you please tell us your insight? What, if it was a perfect world, what would you hope that would happen if mom and dad split up? How would you like to share your time? Not that it's going to happen, but it's nice to hear from you. And then not only do we move forward into a co-parenting situation in the future where mom and dad can become on the same page, but the child then has an understanding of the entire system, of what's happening in their own lives. We're not dictating for their lives, but they also have a sense of pride. They have a sense of control over their own lives. And they don't build up the resentment, because the worst thing that can happen is going forward, the child was never heard, was never consulted. A divorce is where adults make this life-altering decision for a child, and the child is just expected to deal with it. when the child is brought into the process, they can grow up knowing that they were valued, that they were heard, that everything that happened had some consultation with their opinion. Not only does that then build a much stronger sense of self-esteem and self-worth and all of that, but it also gives them some sense of accountability, that when something happens in the future, they don't feel like, oh, well, you forced me to do this, and this is just the consequence of that. You can say, you know, you were accountable because you were involved. You knew what was happening before it even started happening. And now we can all work together to help the child as well through this life change.
Nana, thank you very much. While you're chatting, I'm putting some comments onto the screen as well for the viewers to see. I think a very important comment which you have made earlier on, you must have the child's buy-in into the situation. It's certainly mom and dad are negotiating and discussing the entire process, but the minor child is not being consulted and not being, we're not listening to his views on the matter. If we listen to his views and we have his buy-in and his input, the minor child will cooperate with the system. So if the mother and father, for example, come to the conclusion that the child should now live with a dad during different hours than he's used to living with dad, he's just being told he must do that. He might fight the system, he might fight the process. However, if the minor child is consulted and asked, what do you think about it? What is your view on the specific situation? More than likely, the minor child will comply with that and he'll make it more easy and workable for the parents.
Another thing on that as well is, our aim here is to try and build a positive, well-rounded relationship with our children. And by forcing them to do something or not consulting them and really disempowering them, what we are doing is we're giving them an avenue to build up resentment. Then all of a sudden I say, okay, say to a 10-year-old, okay, you're now going to be living with dad full-time and seeing mom on the weekend. Let's just use that as an example. But the child was never consulted. So this is just what the child now is told to do. Firstly, there's going to be automatic resentment built up against the person who's brought this information to the child. Because remember that they don't have necessarily the same capacity to process emotional information the same way we do as adults. So we deal with things like resentment, obviously fighting back, disruptive behavior, all of this kind of stuff. And I mean, when you pile all these negative characteristics onto one child because of circumstance, we're not leading towards a very happy adult, and we need to give these children the space also to deal with the process, which is something I'm going to get back to as well. But so what we could have potentially is we have resentment towards whoever gives the information to the child. Then we sit and the child thinks about it and goes, okay, wait a second. I wonder whose decision this was. If I'm going to be staying with dad primarily, maybe it was dad who fought for this. And I'm going to resent dad for keeping me away from mom. But then I'm going to resent mom for not fighting for me harder. So now I'm resenting mom, I'm resenting dad, I'm resenting the mediator or the social worker or whatever. Every other adult in this child's life have to follow the procedure that is set out by the parents. So now I'm going to resent my school teacher for not doing anything about my situation and for allowing me to stay at my dad full time. I'm going to resent my OT. I'm going to resent everybody, grandparents, because nobody's listening to me, nobody's helping me. And that just gets completely out of control. So it is very, very important that, they have to know from the onset that they don't have the power to make the decisions, but we will listen to you and see how we can accommodate you best. And then, that's really a golden ticket.
Yeah, the input of the minor child is super important. Many people pose a question, and you obviously get it on a regular basis. At what age do you start considering the minor child's input? Of course, if the child is 1 or 2 years old, you shouldn't really consider it much. My view, and obviously I'll ask you what your view is. My view is when the child is at a stage whereby is mature enough and his input can possibly affect the situation, and also depending upon the circumstances. If a simple thing, for example, 1 or 2 hours difference, and it's pragmatical sense, it makes sense that 1 or 2 hours applies, yes. But however, if it's a major decisions regarding weekends being swapped, weekends being changed, extramural activities could be affected, or schooling could be affected, then depending on the age and maturity of the minor child, he needs to be consulted. But what is your view regarding the general age? When do you start considering it? At what point?
It is a very, very loaded and very difficult question to answer because individuals are also unique. But like in the Children's Act, it is specified that once a child reaches a level of emotional maturity that is good enough really to handle the situation, that is at the point that they can be included. I disagree with this to a point, I mean, on the grounds of just my own opinion. And I feel that it doesn't matter what age the child is, that they should be involved in some way, but it must be in a meaningful way for that age group. So let's say that we've got a child who is capable and emotionally mature enough to deal with it, then a session with them would be conducted differently to as it would be with like a 4-year-old, let's say. So at that point, with a 4-year-old, I always like to bring them into the situation instead of leaving it. And I'm not trying to now take away anything from the parents, but instead of leaving it all to the parents to deal with, I like to bring the child into a mediation session at some point and say, this is what's going on. This is why it's going on. Mom and dad love you. We're all on the same page. We're all here to help you. Have you got anything you'd like to say? Because it doesn't matter what emotional maturity level they're at, that will be meaningful to them. So in an appropriate way for a 4-year-old to say, is there anything you want to tell us? You know, is there anything that you'd like to add? Whereas with somebody who's older, I could say, I mean, I've got a lot of pre-teens actually that I work with, where they're now in a situation where everything for them in life is changing. You know, we're talking about puberty, we're talking about higher education levels, we're talking about everything. And those kids I would bring in for private therapy sessions or not mediation, they're kind of like coaching sessions, I suppose, where I sit with them only. I say, fine, forget mom and dad. What do you need? What do you want? What is your issue with dad? What is your issue with mom? Let's figure it out. And then I work almost as the middleman for the child, because something to remember is that no child is going to sit in a room ever and have to deal with a conflictual situation where they feel that they have to choose sides. It's not fair and it's not going to happen. So what I do is I'm almost like an advocate for them, I suppose, or a medium that they can talk through, where I can deal with the child, and then afterwards I call the parents in together and say, this is the feedback and the information that I've received. Obviously, we stick to an ethical component and confidentiality and all of that kind of stuff. So whatever is discussed with the parents is obviously being given permission by the child. But the idea is to say, yes, you guys want X and Y, or you've already got a parenting plan that stipulates X and Y. However, the child wants this, and these are the concerns of the child. How can we now navigate this so that the child is the one that's getting what he or she needs?
Now, Daniella, what you're saying makes logical sense in any situation. The same way when it comes to employment issues, where management decides without consulting with employees. And this is the first time I actually heard it, where you were acting as a mediator for the parents itself. You're acting like a neutral third party. You speak to the child, and it's very important, as I mentioned earlier, to have the child's buy-in, and you need to make him feel comfortable with that. And many times what happens in practice, and I see it happen a lot, the minor child start playing the parents against each other. They start
100%.
acting out. But if the child feels, I was part of this, and mom, and I'm living with dad from Saturday from 5 o'clock the evening until the Sunday evening because I was consulted, and more than likely you can make him feel that it's his decision. He was the one that decided that. He'll be diplomatic and we'll have a better buy-in where the kids are concerned. Daniella, before we move on over there, there's a link on the screen, www.ourlawyer.co.za/pp. That's a parenting plan which Daniella drafted, or template parenting plan which she worked on, and which is uploaded onto that link. If you are watching this video, please download that parenting plan. It's a very good starting point, so you can understand what a parenting plan is, especially that based upon the fact that we are mentioning the word parenting plan all the time. The courts are mentioning it, everyone is mentioning it. And if you have a family law issue problem, please download that specific link. Daniella, let us move on regarding this. If a minor child is totally against this change completely, I want to stay by mom, although the experts are recommending it, you're recommending that the minor child now should stay by dad. This is a difficult question. What approach would you generally implement when it comes to the minor child, engaging with the minor child?
Okay, so it is very difficult, like you said. But there's two elements that we're going to look at. We're going to look at the child and their needs and their wants and their personal voice and all of that. And then we're going to look from a clinical point of view to see what is best for the child. So I'm going to use an example in this now. I'll actually use my own child as an example. What would probably be best for my child is for him to live, to go to a school, for example, that is a lot stricter than the school that he's currently at, for example. I know that if I had to send him to this other school that is stricter, he will be completely miserable because he is cheeky and he's naughty and he wants to get away with murder. So if he's now put in line, he'll be completely miserable. And he'll come home probably very cross with me, and his life is so difficult because he didn't do his homework, so he got detention and whatever. But this might be best for him in the long run. It might be exactly what he needs. And this is the army mentality. This might be what he needs exactly in order to help him in his future. So now we're looking at these two components, the emotional component and the practical component, and the logical. So when we have got a child who we say, okay, you know what, you're going to live with dad because it's in your best interest, because dad has a much better grip on your school routine than mom does. Yes, that is very important to consider. So yes, it might be more practical, but we cannot just completely ignore the emotional needs of the child. So where this becomes difficult is which side are we going to choose as the winner? Because it can't be both. It has to be one or the other. And at this point, what I would then do is I would bring the child in to kind of figure out what it is that is making them so resistant. Do they feel that they have unfinished business or whatever with mom that they need to deal with to be able to let go of separation anxiety? Are they feeling that dad is a little bit too lazy or uninterested or whatever? So once we bring the child in and we can actually see why there is some form of resistance, which is a challenge all on its own, then we can kind of start to develop each relationship separately, the one with mom and the one with dad. And through parenting classes or joint therapy or whatever, we can then say, okay, well, we've dealt with all of these issues. We are building, our aim is always to try, not that it's practical, but to try and build an equal relationship with the child between each parent. I had a client who said it perfectly the other day, is that when he was a child, he could leave his parents and get in the car with his uncle and go to Joburg for a week, no problem. Didn't miss the parents, whatever. Why? Because wherever he went, he had the equal amount of love and support and understanding and all of that. So in a nutshell, our aim is to make sure that wherever the child is, they experience exactly the same commitment and support and all of that. That is really irrelevant where they are. They don't feel like they're anywhere that's causing any strain to them. And this is a whole process. And the reason I say this is so difficult, especially with younger kids, is that they always seem to adopt an avoidant style of communication. So when they don't want to talk about something, they change the subject, or they don't talk, or they go quiet. So it is very difficult to kind of get into what they might be thinking. But then we bring in other disciplines, like what's very valuable, for example, is OT. I mean, we're talking about emotional OT and things where they can deal with everything on a subconscious level. Because another thing to bear in mind that is very important is that for any child dealing with a broken home, as we know as adults, a breakdown of a relationship is a grieving process. And they say that a lot of the same emotions come from that as it does from the loss of a loved one. So we need to grieve the process. And everyone who's been divorced know that you go through your 5 stages of grief. And a lot of children aren't given the opportunity to do that. And it's not understood that they're also grieving. So you might have a couple that's been divorced for 4 or 5 years, but the child is still stuck in the anger phase because they haven't dealt with it. And once they are guided through the process of grief and get to the point of acceptance, it's a lot easier then to be able to put them in a situation that makes them feel comfortable.
Daniela, thank you for that, and I agree with you 100%. What I'm learning from you, and as I mentioned to you previously, I learn a lot from you with regard to your videos. I'm a lawyer, I'm a legal guy, but I have not no clue, but my knowledge is limited when it comes to the psychological aspect when it comes to family issues. I deal with the issues at the end, the finalization, court order signing off, but there's a plethora of work that needs to be done beforehand. Many times it's not done, but I can see if it is done, the outcome will be much, much better. I have one or two comments here on the live stream. I'll just read it out quickly and we can continue again. The first comment is the courts like to throw the sentence best interest of the child, but what they do and how they do it totally contradictory to the phrase best interest. I'll just quickly comment regarding that. The challenge which I would say the courts have is um, the parents are basically the parties who would know what is best for the minor child. That's a factual thing because they know the child better than anybody else. They would also know what's best for the child better than yourself as a psychologist, or because you only meet the child for an hour or two. So how do you make a decision regarding the child's next 10 years based upon that limited information? Same with the courts, a family advocate, and so on. But if the parties themselves cannot come to an agreement, unfortunately, they need to go to professionals, and professionals need to make recommendations. Many times, those specific recommendations you're not happy with it because it does not follow what you specifically wanted it to be. I'm not referring to the commenter, I'm speaking generally here. So that is why I solely suggest people in family matters, to first try to mediate the matter among themselves. But if you want a third party to mediate it, a third party that doesn't know you at all, you will more than likely be unhappy with the outcome. Any comment on that, Daniela?
I just have one comment on this comment that you just read out, is that it says that they're always throwing around best interests of the child, but it's not what the client wanted. Who's the client in this matter? Because if the client that this commenter is referring to is anybody other than the child, then that's wrong. And I mean that with respect. So we're not saying mom and dad is the client when we're talking about the best interests of the child. We are only talking about the child. And the point is, like, I just want to say, like what you said now is 100% right. And parents know their children better than anybody. So for the parents to be involved is of paramount importance for the child's well-being. But a professional, and especially in the court system, like they might sign off on something that they deem to be in the best interest of the child based on a social worker's report, let's say. The social worker has the knowledge and the power to make decisions based on the best interests of a child of that age generally. So what I'm saying is that I don't know what Sally's best interests are. Sally's 2 years old. However, I know what's more or less in the best interest of a 2-year-old. So I might say, well, the 2-year-old needs to live with mom primarily, and dad can have day visitations, no sleepovers, because that's kind of like seems normal. However, we don't know that mom works 24 hours a day in Canada and dad's the one that here. So how can we generalize that for Sally, And that's why it is so important for social workers and even mediators to do the full investigation and to collect the collateral so that you're making a decision based on Sally, not on a 2-year-old.
And Daniela, your point is taken there that what is best for the parents, is not necessarily best for the child. So the court is not concerned what is best for the mom or the dad. It might be in the mother's best interest that the father has limited contact with the child, only see the child once a year or never. That might be the mother's best interest because that's how she feels. I'm speaking generally, referring to nobody. And it might be the father's best interest for him to pay less maintenance or pay no maintenance because then he can spend more money on entertainment and so on. But that's not how the law works. The law was focused on what's best for the minor child. Daniela,
another example of this. Sorry, quickly, another example of this is something that I'm dealing with now where the child has been at the same school for 3 years, and the contact arrangement between mom and dad has now changed, that they've got practically 50-50. Now dad's complaining that the school is closer to mom's house, so he has to travel an hour every day to get the child to school. So in terms of what suits dad, it would be better for the child to go to a school that's more central. But what's best for the child is to stay in the schools that she's been at for the last 3 years with the friends that she's got, and dad must just suck it up, So that is a nice example of what's better for the child versus what's better for a parent.
Yeah, and the sad reality is if you as mother and father cannot come to some type of amicable agreement, then too bad, a third party will have to make a decision. The courts, the law doesn't get on board unless there's social welfare issues involved. You know, the children are being neglected and counselors and social workers on board. Of course, then they get on board. But if it's normal day-to-day mother and father decisions, the law doesn't get involved at all. But if you bring it to the court's realm, because you and the mother and the father cannot come to a agreement regarding the minor child, that's unfortunate. One of you guys are obviously in bad luck. And we try to avoid that from happening at all costs. Daniela, let me just go on with this commenter. She commented further. She says the following. I have a very limited facilitation clause in my divorce order. We have been for one facilitation session and then the facilitator resigned due to the other party not cooperating. If the other party doesn't consent to facilitation, what is the next step? They tried the same with the family advocate as well. No consent was given. Please advise. So basically the question is, if the party does not want to consent to facilitation, what do you do? My quick answer is, matter must go to court. What else can you do?
My quick answer is that a facilitator, or now what we call a parenting coordinator, we have the power to issue directives, but we have got no power to enforce them. So while I can now sit here and say, as a parenting coordinator, my decision is that the child must go to the same school that it's gone to for 3 years, Dad doesn't have to listen to me. You know, I've got more weight than a mediator, but then it is like you say, it's going to have to go to court.
And that's a sad thing. I believe there should be certain type of powers given to facilitator, at least interim powers that can be implemented as soon as possible. Because going to court can take 6, 7 months or a year sometimes. And here we're fighting over the issue concerning which school the child should go to. And once it gets heard in court, the child is in the following grade. What must they stay out of school? What should happen? So that's a challenge which we have. The commenter goes further. She says the following. Oh, she comments you, Daniela. She says, what you say, Daniela, is so profound, makes me think a lot. Thank you for that, Daniela. That's awesome. Next comment is, I am referring to the child take maintenance court. They don't act in the child's best interests of children by delaying issues and not implementing the act that they are empowered to do. That is also something which I have a problem with. The maintenance court should implement and expedite maintenance matter as quick as possible.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, this is a chat for Felicity, but the point is with the maintenance court and the maintenance clauses is that not only is it worked out on the requirements of the child, but also on the parents' affordability. So that is, for me, a massive gray area. You know, it's at some point you think like maybe that whole parental affordability thing should be taken out of the picture because it's kind of used as a scapegoat. Father doesn't get a job so that he can prove that he doesn't earn money. Like, I mean, as in a perfect world, it would just be, sorry, 50-50, cut down the middle, 5,000 from you, 5,000 from you, make a plan, you know? So I don't know, maybe that's a discussion for Felicity for some day.
I'll bring it up with Felicity and guest. She's again a child maintenance activist. The commenter goes further and comments you further. Daniela says, you have so much insight, Daniela. Wish I knew you about 4 years ago. You were practicing 4 years ago, of course. But I think with online videos and streaming, people get our names get out faster. I want to move on to a different topic. This is now maybe a side issue. I'm starting this theme for this month, for February and March, regarding toughen up. That's basically my theme. Telling people that they should start toughening up when it comes to family legal matters, child maintenance, child custody issues, possibly divorce matters. Toughen up in the sense of don't be afraid of taking the matter further. Don't have the attitude, for example, where you say, I do not want to go to the maintenance court because I know the father of the child will be there and he will make life difficult for me, he will lie, and so on. And you find more reasons why not to go to the maintenance court than to go to the maintenance court. And my second theme, which I might implement later on in the month, it's part of today's theme as well, is, own your case. Many times people, they go to the maintenance court and they sit in a corner. You should go to the maintenance court or to the children's court and believe it's your case. You're fighting for your case, and everybody around you should listen to you, and you should get the results. What is your view regarding those two themes?
So, I mean, I'm a huge supporter of owning your case, absolutely, and also for fighting for what you need. There is no point, and I always say to clients, like when they're like, oh, you know, it's fine, I'll settle for half of what is actually due because it's easier, and nothing is going to change unless you make it change. That is the bottom line. If there's a robber who breaks into houses and nobody is prepared to lay a criminal case, there is 100% chance that this robber is never going to be caught. The same way, if you are owed maintenance money, if you want to do something with regards to your parenting plan, there is 100% chance you are going to lose if you don't keep at it and bring it forward. So 100%, it is worth the, I mean, if it's for your child, it is 100% worth the admin, worth the effort. And we got people around like Felicity, like you, like some of your other guests who are there to assist, you know. And even if it's just a little bit of like a morale boost and you can do this, then fine. If anybody needs a boost in morale, you are welcome to contact me and I will send you a lovely message saying you can do this. It is so important to keep, nobody's going to fight for you if you're not going to fight for yourself. That's the end of the story. And your children can't fight for themselves, so you're actually fighting for them.
Well said, Felicity. It's the same way, for example, like losing weight or learning something, studying for a new degree, a new course. You know, you can always say, "Yo, this work is so difficult. You know, I'm struggling. I get nowhere." But it will never happen. You will never get results unless you actually make an effort and start fighting for your case. Yes, there is an emotional issue because you are dealing with your ex-partner, someone you do not like. But the bottom line over here is you must get past that. It's easier said than done, but it needs to be done. Why should you always be living in fear? So many people tell me, advocate, it's easy for you to say so. You should do the following X, Y, and Z. But what if I do not say so? What then? Are we to stay where we are?
Exactly, and it is much easier said than done. Trust me. I mean, I've recently dealt with an issue with my child. The same kind of information that I feed to clients on a daily basis about how to handle the situation, I now can't see, like in my own situation. But it's obvious from an outsider's point of view, everything's easy and simple and you're being stupid and I can't believe you can't see it. But when you're dealing with it with yourself, nothing makes sense at all. And I go to somebody like me to deal with my issue with my child, you know? So yes, easier said than done. And that's why if you need the support, if you need the emotional support, then contact me with the greatest of pleasure. I'll push you.
Thank you for that, Daniela. And while you say contact you, you can't see it because you're on Zoom on the other side, unless you're watching it on Facebook where you are. Daniela's details is on the screen. Her website, www.danielatherapy.co.za. Email daniela.riva@gmail.com and telephone number 066 154 7696. Daniela is very approachable. Contact her, WhatsApp her, put your name down there. Network with her, communicate with her. It's very important. Many professionals, I'm not saying, not mentioning any names, like they try to be aloof. They think because I'm an advocate, I'm an attorney, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I'm a psychologist, I'm a psychiatrist, they might have a bit of ease on themselves, which is not healthy at all. I don't think it's a good idea. I'm not referring to anybody. Daniela is extremely approachable and extremely professional as well. She knows her stuff. I refer many people to her and they are always happy with the results. Daniela, we're now getting to 38 minutes of actual videoing of this webinar. Any final points before we get to 40 minutes?
Not really. To be honest, I think we've discussed quite a lot. And yeah, I think, you know, my final points are going to be, again, nobody's going to fight for you if you don't fight for yourself. Stand up for yourself and just take it like the full way. And do anything half-hearted. And when your children are in the mix, remember that you're not only acting for your own best interest, but you're also definitely acting for theirs. And if you can't do it for yourself, at least do it for your kids.
And Daniela, what I like about your zeal and your ambition, you are now pursuing further education legally as well, so you can understand the law better as well. That will give you a great arsenal in your, a great tool in your arsenal, for lack of a better way of saying it, for the sole reason, I'm a lawyer, I'm not a psychologist, I am limited in what I can do. But if someone has a psychology degree and as well a legal degree, you will be able to assist your clients much more better, because you'll be able to understand, and at the same time you'll do it better in court. You will be a better litigator, a better practitioner, because you'll understand how the courts think, the magistrates think, the judges, the other lawyer, and so on. So well done and good luck, and we hope you do well over there. Danielle, that's my final words. As I said earlier on, toughen up, own your case, and next week we will be back, and connect with us, contact with us, and please share this video if you can. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.